Welcome to our next Keynote session, part of the Solve track, where we confront challenges head-on with critical thinking and sharp problem-solving. This is where we gain the tools to navigate ambiguity, simplify complexity, and drive stronger outcomes. It's time to move beyond the obstacles. It's time to solve. Please welcome to the stage Melissa Tamblin, partner of Microsoft Practice at EY, to present Beyond Barriers, Turning Challenges into Opportunities.
Thank you, and welcome to this afternoon's session, and I am so thrilled to have this opportunity to speak with you today. I am going to give you a bit of an overview of what I'd like to talk to you about. So I have 3 objectives. I like to do things in threes. I think that's a good number. Thing number 1 is I'd like to validate some of the complexity that we're all feeling, and give you some data and just really allow us to feel and sit in that. Then I'd like to inspire you. I'd like to talk about a mindset shift that I think is going to be required for us to solve and move through some of the complexity. And then I'm going to give you some equipment. I'm going to equip you with some tools. It's a little bit of a quick and dirty way to think about navigating complexity, but I guarantee you it's a good one. Now, before I get to that, though, I'd like to entertain you a little bit. I love music, and I like using music in things that I do, and so with that, I'm going to click it over.
High school, and today Andrew acted up after the
Money Watch, the stock market closed out the week.
How do you think your shareholders would feel about that?
No wonder sales are plummeting.
There's nobody here that is in control, willing to take charge.
You are not worthy of my respect. I'm also going to need you to go ahead and come in on Sunday, too.
So Jim spoke earlier. That was my plug at the end there. But I do think that captures where we're at. There's just a lot of noise. It's work. It's home. It's family. And so what I'm talking about here isn't just how we navigate the complexity of what we do in IT in our lives, because we show up as our full selves with all of the complexity, and we navigate and we have access to tools that we can draw on from those areas of our lives as well. So we are living in unprecedented times. We are literally living through history. The pandemic and what's going on today are things that there's going to be a chair in the early 2020s at universities around the world. And technology is at the heart of it. When I started at EY as head of our Microsoft practice, there was no ChatGPT. And now AI is embedded in everything we do. And as a result, and not even as a result, just generally, customers want more. They want more. They are facing unprecedented cyber attacks, another side of generative AI. And overall, there is just a pull for us to be better, faster, cheaper, smarter, safer. That's a heavy load to carry. At EY, we've done some studying of this just to make it not what we already know and feel, but really interviewing CIOs and IT leaders and asking them what they see are the trends that are facing folks like ourselves as IT leaders. And the first is the shift from IT being tactical to strategic. And we heard about that this morning. All of us are now being called up. We're in the big leagues now, and we are being asked to drive the business, to enable revenue, because we are now digital businesses. However, we're faced with challenges. We have people who lack the skills that are necessary to do the jobs that we're looking for them to do. So that was another theme that came out in our data. The other is just the proliferation of IT, not just the domain of IT, but the shadow IT that we see, which we can talk about in terms of whether it's a good or bad thing, but it's emerging, and how we manage it is a challenge. CIOs, as I said, are now drivers of revenue. Good news, but reality and complex. The other two things, I think, are themes that we can look at in a number of ways, and I think they're good things. The business model is shifting. We have now alliances and ecosystems. We have companies working together, individuals working together in ways that have never been done before. And our ability to reach out to hardware vendors, software vendors, professional services providers, and have these groups come together and work together is it's also unprecedented and something we can lean on. And the AI as a chaser to COVID is a great accelerator. So our study proves what we know to be true. These things are happening. So this leads us to feeling like that video. I mean, just and that nervous system overload leads to that analysis paralysis, and often we react when we really want to respond. And so I'm going to move a little bit now and talk about the paradigm shift that's happening. We are moving from a reality or a duality in a lot of areas. We used to have the business and IT, and now we have digital business. We used to have the service and the product, and now we have solutions. We used to have our personal life and our professional life, and now they're together. We've all seen each other's kids and God knows what on Zoom and Teams calls. And we post things on LinkedIn that are quite personal, and we wouldn't have done that 10 years ago. So there is a great convergence that's occurring. And the question that we're answering today in this solve theme is how do we cut through the noise? How do we manage this complexity and overcome these challenges? So first of all, I'm going to talk about what we don't do. What does not work? These are the things that we know and we see as EY with our clients all the time. The way to solve for complexity and manage challenges is not through force and control. When we force and control, or we use fear as a way to try and get through to the other side, we see things like staff leaving, high vacation rates, low morale, apathy, and poor outcomes. We see this a lot in more command and control style organizations. I'm the boss, that's why, just do it, and that's all you need to know, doesn't work. Those 3 Ds underneath here, they kind of go together as a family. They also don't work. Deflection. We see this more in a matrixed organization where it's easier to not know where accountability lies, where, that's not my problem. That's marketing. Oh, that's sales. That's operations. We deflect so we don't have to solve. Or we just deny. That's not relevant to my industry. That's not relevant to my customers. That's something we've seen. I know worked with a large retail organization that at one point in time said, selling online isn't a thing. We're taking down our e-commerce site. And they did. And as a shopper of that organization and an avid online buyer, I was sad to see that. But denying that it's a thing isn't going to work. Gen AI, it's a thing. We can't deny it for all of our industries. And deferring it. Yeah, but not now. Now's not the time. Not the time. We're just going to stay with what we got for now, kick it down the curb until all of a sudden it's out of support and we're paying ridiculous support fees and, oh my Lord, now we have to make a decision, and then impulsively we decide, but we're reacting and we're not responding and we're making a decision that we will live to regret. So these aren't the things. We got to go higher. Someone once said, when they go low, we go high, so we got to tap into something else. Solving is really about an attitude. Now, I'm going to pause for a moment and just let you know. I've talked a lot about data. I've talked a lot about a lot of things that really engage your left brain, but I'm going to go a little bit woohoo on you. And I'm going to ask you to think about some of these concepts and unlock that other part of the brain. So, solving is about an attitude or a state of belief that we can solve these things. And it's not going to be through force or shame or denial. It's going to be by drawing on new faculties that we all possess, and we're going to bring them to the party. The first is will. A strong desire to see us solve the challenge. Intuition. Things that we just know to be true in our gut from experience. We haven't seen it to believe it. We're going to believe it to see it. So just our intuition comes into play when we're solving for complexity. And then our imagination, something we lost years ago when we were little and playing on the field and people made up fairies and they imagined things like they would be on stage one day talking to a bunch of people with a microphone. We're going to bring that imagination back into play. And perspective, because perspective is everything. How we look at something, good, bad, right, wrong, that is what dictates an outcome often. And I love this quote because it really is true to that, and that is, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. So let's talk a little bit more about the mindset shift. If the paradigm shift is convergence and we got complexity, the mindset shift is around how we turn challenge into opportunity using those faculties. And I would challenge you to think about it not so much as a turning of challenge into opportunity, but just of a seeing challenge as opportunity. It doesn't have to change, it just is when we change our perspective. I can tell you the perspective in this room looks a lot different up here than it does sitting there. And so when we look at a problem always one way and we get outside of it and start looking at it in a different way, it all of a sudden changes the opportunities that unlock for us. So one of the famous mindset coaches, Bob Proctor, his favorite saying was, "That's good." You could tell him anything. Sales are down. That's good. We just lost a customer. That's good. Everything, that's good. Because there is always another side to whatever that is. We just have to see it. It's there. Told you, a bit woohoo. but true. Okay. So, EY is a methodology. We call it transformation realized. It has a number of pieces, but the most important is humans at the center. Because we all know as technologists, secretly, that when changes happen, it's people, process, technology, always in that order. It's the people. We have to capture hearts and minds. And so it's important that solving problems and meeting challenges and complexity, we bring the imagination, the will, we bring the intuition, but most importantly, we bring curiosity and creativity. There is a famous quote by Walt Whitman that says, "Be curious, not judgmental." And I quote Walt Whitman not because I am a big Walt Whitman quoter, but because I am a big Ted Lasso fan. And I don't know, hands up if you've seen Ted Lasso. Okay. It's so good. And if you haven't seen it, I mean, I just heard they're making season 4. I literally just wept with joy. This guy, he's a solver. I mean, we know it, right? Because really solving is about believing, and it's just putting that out into the world. Ted did it. I mean, you know, this is before the sign got broken. And in that scene, when he's shooting the darts with Rupert, you know, he says, you know, one day I used to see that Walt Whitman quote, "Be curious, not judgmental." And then he goes on, I'm not going to do his accent because it's embarrassing if I did, but he says, you know, he played darts every day or every week with his dad, and of course he nailed the dart match and got the team, and it was an amazing thing. But one thing Ted said was this: just listen to your gut, and on the way down to your gut, check in with your heart. Between those two things, they'll let you know what's what. And I think that's truth. So now enough of that right brain stuff. I'm going to come back to more of the equip part of the show here. How do we, what are some practical, tactical things that we can do? Short of putting up a believe sign in your offices, which would be cool, by the way. There are some ways that we can work these things through. Because we know, in all of that complexity that I talked about, the best leaders are those that are able to distill complexity into clarity. I love the saying, I didn't have time to write you a 1-page paper, so I wrote you a 10-page paper. Because it is hard to distill things down. It's just easier to blah, 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 blah. And so I'm going to use the highly scientifically named name it, frame it, tame it approach. And it is a little silly because it rhymes, but it's very effective. So let's start with name it. So, oops, I love him so much, I had to go back. All right. What if it was easy? I want you just to entertain that as we go through. What if it is not that complex? What if it's just name it, frame it, tame it? So when we're naming something, if I use an analogy, this is the most critical because we are doing a diagnostic. If I go in to my doctor and I say, my left arm is killing me, I need a referral to a physio, I need a splint. I need that, it hurts. And the doctor does a diagnostic and says, actually, you're having a heart attack. Oh, I guess I had the diagnosis wrong. I would have walked away with a splint and not good things would happen. So being able to really unpack something, whatever it is that's presented, understand, as we heard this morning, why is it hurting? Why is this painful? Why do we want to solve for this? What good will it bring us? These are important questions to ask. And going through that, taking our time, pausing, the power of the pause, responding, and then being able to identify what does good look like. So if we want, I'll use an example, we need Gen AI around here. Leadership says, we got to do some Gen AI. It's a thing. That's a pretty loaded, amorphous statement. If we start to unpack that together, what exactly is it that our leadership is after? Well, I think they're really looking for us to see some improvements in productivity. Cool. And I think they're looking for us to find ways to be more competitive in our market. And we believe that there are tools embedded in the technologies that can help us with productivity and competitiveness. So now we've named the problem isn't implement Gen AI because they told us to. We now need to look for opportunities to improve productivity and competitiveness and find ways to leverage these technologies to do so. But let's get really specific. What does good look like? Let's set a number. We're setting our GPS right now, and it is 20% improvement in productivity, 10% lift on sales. So as soon as we've done this diagnostic, we've been able to get underneath the ask, identify what specifically good looks like, and we plug it into the GPS. Great. We know where we're going. We just need 20% improvement in productivity and 10% lift in sales. Okay, fine, but oh my God, how? Because now we get into the messy middle. This is where we've got to find a way to frame this up so that we can actually get through to the other side. Because the GPS is set, but there are a lot of ways to get there. And how we do that is again, where we draw on those ecosystems and those alliance partners. We contextualize and we consult like a good doctor would do. We play around with this. What's the prognosis? What are the different treatment paths? What have others done? Let's look at the studies. Again, we don't want to sort of wallow in this stage, but we need to spend some time here. It gives us all the perspectives. And again, it's not just the perspectives of 3 people. We seek perspective inside the organization. What does productivity feel like to you today? And what does good look like? What would be good for you to improve your productivity? So it's not just consulting Gartner and the fancy consultants, it's talking to your own people, because they have ideas. And then it's really good in this stage to go through a worst case, best case scenario. If we totally tank this, what would happen? We would we implement these new processes, these new tools, our productivity actually tanks, our sales go down, our customers leave us, we play it out and we sit in that. Because it's important to neutralize and remove the charge of what could possibly be feeling daunting. So once we go there and we know we could live on the other side in the ugliness, then we play with the other side. What happens if we don't get 20%, we get 50%, and all of a sudden we are running show, as my 18-year-old son likes to say. I run show. He doesn't. He doesn't brush his teeth, in fact, but that's another story. So we play around, best case, worst case, and that allows us to neutralize it and set the guardrails. So, just like a GPS, we want to go there, but we don't want to take highways, and we don't want to pay toll roads, and we're driving an electric car. And we set up those guardrails. We feel like we've got the data that we need to be able to move to our treatment plan. And now we're taming it. And I say it's taming it as opposed to solving it, because it's not a one and done. You know, I love the buggy whip. I was a big fan also of Little House on the Prairie, but I don't have any good quotes from that show. The idea of solving, it is, first of all, there's no whipping. I already told you that didn't work. But there is a continuousness to the process of solving, because once we set the GPS and we say no toll roads and we put all the parameters in place, and then we start to make the plan and we scope it out and we get the plan and we know who does what when and what the dependencies and the order of operations are. So in the case of the arm, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do heart surgery, then we're going to bring in the social worker, then we're going to bring in the physio. We lay it all out. We're super clear on who's doing what when. And then before we just go, it's really important to make sure everyone is on side. Enrolling everyone that we consulted with in the diagnostic phase, in the framing phase, in the plan, and in the possibility of this plan working, and in their role in making this plan come to life and be real. So that act of enrollment and possibility and continuing to capture hearts and minds is way cooler than a Gantt chart. And it is super important to making sure that we get to that destination. And then for heaven's sakes, let's act. Let's get going. Because as soon as you start down that road, you know, how many times have we used Waze? And it reroutes. And it's cool because we know where we're going. We know what our parameters are, and we have the right team. We've engaged and consulted, and we've enrolled, and we're on together. And so let's go. And I was just in Steve Farber's talk, and we go, and we may have a OSM moment, and we probably will. And if you don't know what that is, I'm not going to tell you. Because I'm a lady. But there are those moments, but we are prepared for them because that is part of what it means to solve for complexity. And it's that mindset shift. That's good. We got this. And we got this. Even if this doesn't work out, we're going to reroute because we can do that. And with that belief, with the paradigm shift and the mindset shift and the ability to diagnose, to consult, and then treat, we've got a winning formula. So I think another really good one, not Ted Lasso nor Little House on the Prairie, challenges are what make life interesting, 100%. But overcoming them or just mucking about with them is really what makes life meaningful. It's why we do this. Nobody gets into this business for boring life to be flipping burgers, right? This is interesting. And never has there been a time more than 2025 for there to be interesting opportunities to create meaningful outcomes for ourselves, for our customers, and in the world. So I just want to summarize this. What I'm proposing to you today is that this paradigm shift of convergence that we are experiencing, first of all, requires a mindset shift with humans at the center. We need to bring our will, our curiosity, our creativity, our intuition, and the ability to shift, figure ground, and change perspective to the table. All those things that we may be locked up for a while, we can unleash them. We sit down and we do a diagnostic. We really unpack what's being asked and we really define what good looks like. We do the consultation. We frame this up. We play with the worst case scenario. We play with the best case scenario. And we gather our data. We talk to our people too. And then we start that planning. We put that plan together. We put the wayfinder in place, we get everyone on board, and then we open up the gates and off we go. We're doing it. So, I would like to thank you. I am very pleased to say that I have extra time available. I know that that time is what separates me and you from the bar that they've set up at the back. But I want to leave you, of course, with a song and with 5 extra minutes back in your afternoon. And again, to thank you very much for the opportunity. And I think I was saying this earlier, this is one of the best conferences, and I've enjoyed being part of it. So